Post-apocalypse is not a foreign concept to this series, and today's analysis is no stranger to this idea, but with a lot less zombies, mutants, and alien lifeforms, and a hell of a lot more robots. Tomorrow, America celebrates the day it gained its independence, and what better way to celebrate that than cover a game where the world is plunged into extinction because of the efforts of corporations taking control of politics. And with the sequel right around the corner, I figured what better time than any to start discussing the game just over the horizon and discuss how we would be screwed if it suddenly happened out of the blue, despite some comments saying, "I know I wouldn't survive, I didn't need a video discussing that." This time we are discussing the Terminator turned infectious, duality of technology forcing us into primitive life, corrupt corporations blow up with taxations as they build up their machinations to build up world domination. Dr. Ian Malcolm has a few words to say to Dr. Ted Faro.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it.
Why not call the sequel Horizon One Dusk, a gamer fuel literally made out of gamers? Resistance is futile, and this is all discussing what happened prior to the events of the games itself. This time, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive Horizon Zero Dawn's Faro Plague. Many times in futuristic lore, the topic of technology becoming too advanced and AI breaking the chains of human control going awry and resulting in chaos of epic proportions. Horizon Zero Dawn does not shy away from that idea in the slightest. In the Horizon timeline, sometime in the midst of the mid-21st century, not too far off from where we are now, except automation is now in full swing, with automatons and robotics advancing enough to where these machines do literally everything for us, from home maintenance to agricultural cultivation to manufacturing medicine. Despite this, energy, fuel, and more was needed to continue this easier way of life, as humans still exhausted the world of all of its natural resources, sporadically exacerbating the rate of climate change, with some text logs by poet Diego Abella describing rising waves that destroyed cities and forced thousands and even millions into shelters to starve and freeze in the harsh winter, while those in charge abuse those hiding in fear. Amidst the world naturally trying to evict the human race, corporations, wanting nothing more than to widen their profit margins, would stoke false flags to create political strife and war so they could produce and sell more combat automatons. The typical human soldier was outclassed by the robot infantry in every single way, so most, if not all, conflicts were settled by artificial life. Because of this, corporations that created them would gain government and political control through proxy candidates that they could manipulate. Governments would have little to no say in militarization and war because these corporations had such a strong foothold, and it was up to all these companies at the end of the day, which isn't too far from the truth in the foreseeable future. The most prominent of these robotics industries, Faro Automated Solutions, released the deadliest and most effective combat line known as the Chariots. Operating similar to swarms of insects in classes known as scarabs and kopeshes, overseen by the guidance of one master/queen called the Horus in a symbiotic relationship, more on them later, as they attack in large numbers. Their greatest danger develops from both how they keep themselves fueled by consuming biomass of any kind and how they can self-replicate at an alarming rate to create large numbers to overwhelm any forces. This became the world's deadliest and readily available weapon when used under the hand and foot of the world's first trillionaire, Ted Faro. His natural sense of greed, weighing the options of profit over logistics and repercussions, led to the mass production of the Chariot line, creating this AI that was virtually unstoppable as they could learn and adapt from every encounter, being untouchable in any means of remote hacking due to an advanced encryption code, immune to any sort of modern EMP, and be able to almost instantaneously hack and take control of any and all enemy computers and AI. This meant total military dominance for anyone that was willing to shell out the bucks. But as Dr. Ian Malcolm once said,
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
because of Faro's arrogance, ignorance, and obliviousness, a fail-safe measure to get them under control in case of an instance of these AI going rogue was never implemented, because he never wanted these robots to be remotely hacked in any way. In 2064, when the company of Hartz-Timer Energy Combine deployed their newly bought chariots, these robots soon defected and refused any commands by their owners, becoming solely independent beings of limitless destructive potential, resulting in the beginning of the end. Faro had reached out to his former chief scientist, Dr. Elisabeth Solbeck, who had left his company for taking it on a militarized path to attempt to reverse his reckless actions. However, even as the most brilliant mind the company had to offer, in the span of less than a day, Solbeck came to the conclusion that because Faro wanted his killing machines to be completely unhackable, and because the chariots had developed their own intelligence and utilized all life as biofuel, that mankind and veritably all life on Earth would experience an extinction event that would be carried out in only about 15 months. For once, one of these scenarios kicks off pretty quickly without a ton of lore building, and is pretty close to what we can expect when blending their reality with ours. But let's say instead of all this happening in Q4 of 2064, let's push that to say sometime in the next few years. What if armament manufacturers around the world in highly militarized countries like the US, China, Russia, Japan, or even France developed AI similar to the Chariot line and sought seats of political power? Those corporate powers with political control would instigate battles and wars in order to boost production of their robots. Countries with underdeveloped technology would be absolutely devastated and wiped out in no time flat. While war between countries using solely robots to fight might seem like an easy way to shoehorn the idea of, "Hey dear, I could survive rock'em sock'em robots fighting it out. I'm not in the war." Well, I mean, robots are going to be fighting it out, but that is going to be coming back to you very soon. With all these political leaders trying to show off who has the biggest weapon, it's safe to say if an arms race of AI war machines were to happen, eventually someone like Faro could come along and develop a line similar to the chariots. Their armies are comprised of numerous deadly infantry, with the front line composed of scarabs, scorpion-like quadrupeds that can move at rapid speeds on any kind of terrain, being able to leap large distances to crush enemies and release electronic signals to hack enemy equipment. So any kind of electronic devices you have near it will be hacked and used to their advantage. The Kopesh are the heavy tanks of these mechanical forces, moving slowly but surely towards their target, mounted with a plethora of deathbringers like multiple kinds of turrets, flamethrowers, and swarm launchers to obliterate opposition from afar while taking heavy amounts of damage without faltering. And at the center of them all is the Horus, a Leviathan-sized metal devil that can easily wipe out fortifications using its long tentacles tipped with siege drills, while using its sizable chassis as a replication and repair bay to churn out more smaller forces while constantly repairing them, making sure any losses they take are minimal or none at all times. The Horus's sheer size alone makes for a daunting and impossible enemy to tackle, as it destroys any fortifications nearby and makes more robots to mow you down. The AI recklessly destroys and kills any living thing in sight. Every man, woman, child, animal, and even plant. When they can, they will convert this organic life into biofuel in order to endlessly duplicate more chariot machinations into existence while keeping themselves going for long periods of time. The mainline infantry do this by releasing nanites, tiny microscopic machines, in a cloud called the nano haze to envelop organic life and strip them down microscopically at a hellishly fast rate and return these chunks of biomass to their mechanical form as fuel. They are fueled by the goop of the dead bodies of any animal, plant, or human. The Horus itself will just consume the entire body of an organic life form and convert them into fuel in a more direct fashion in order to produce more robotic units. Meaning, while our numbers are dwindling, they will use our dead bodies and people to infinitely reproduce and dwarf our numbers against theirs, earning them the title of the Chariot Plague as they spread like a disease across the planet. Now you might think, hey, just release an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, but you know what? That would be fruitless. as they charge forward without restriction. Any kind of EMP does not affect them. If you try to hack them or send out our own means of technological warfare, that would literally backfire, as the Chariots would hack our technology and use it against us, using our cell phones to find out where we are, electricity in towns and homes going down to leave us in the dark and leading to riots and chaos, manipulating drones to hunt us down and strike us from above, and if push comes to shove, they can use our nuclear defense systems to completely wipe us out. This would leave us with only less technologically advanced firearms, munitions, and rudimentary melee weaponry to fight back, which again would be fruitless. We would be effectively wiped out, just like Horizon's universe's human race. Except we as a society right now are a lot less advanced, so I guess there would be less for them to hack in terms of firepower, but much like Horizon, a dubious military action known as Operation Enduring Victory would begin. This military action would not be too far from the truth on what would actually happen if it became our reality. With leading military robotics experts knowing the impending demise of all life on Earth, global military efforts fronted by the US military would send out waves upon waves of human forces to fight back against the Chariots. These troops were told that this fight was to stall for time for the creation of a super weapon called the Zero Dawn, which they thought would wipe out these death machines and kill them all in one fell swoop. However, as time would pass in a very short period, Operation Enduring Victory was the absolute most fatal conflict in human history, leading to the deaths of more men and women than any war or combat effort in human history combined. However, despite what these soldiers thought they were fighting for, in reality, Zero Dawn was a backup plan to re-terraform Earth long after life on its surface faded, creating a massive underground network of bunkers to house cloning and automated manufacturing facilities to reintroduce life long after the Chariots ran out of fuel to harvest. This in absolutely no way was meant to keep humanity alive, but at least to preserve the Earth's ecosystem and give it a second chance. For the humans that remained in these undetectable bunkers, they would survive with provisions that would last a century, but time would eventually claim their lives as well. At the center of Zero Dawn laid a powerful AI network known as Gaia that would seek to rejuvenate the world as more machine than man, and would create giant robo-animals and dinosaurs and all sorts of life that look like robots that stem from Gaia, retaliating against reformed primal humanity, just trying to reanimate what was left on Earth. But that topic we will save for another time, as today's topic is the Faro plague and its onslaught of genocidal proportions that ended the world in the first place. So it's a pretty open and shut case on why you wouldn't survive the scenario that led to the events of what created Horizon Zero Dawn's narrative. With the advent of AI waging war against themselves for countries to duke it out seems like a more peaceful alternative to humans laying down their lives. It's the fact that these corporations could instigate violent struggles at any time and anywhere that could cause the death count to rise early on. They would instigate attacks just to provoke the production of more robots. However, the Chariots going rogue would come at a heavy cost in a very short time. Learning and adapting to their environment, knowing our weaknesses, and heavy reliance on technology to just throw it back at us, attacking major metropolitan areas with thousands of scarabs and Kopesh would be easy pickings for them, as even high-grade police and military weaponry and vehicles would be snuffed out fast, as they would probably take out just a few scarabs and barely harm the Kopesh. If cops and military do somehow take one or more scarabs, the Horus would just produce two or more to take their place. And if we somehow manage to make significant damage on a Kopesh, they would simply repair themselves on the spot. They can make sure they mend their wounds without any issue. Being crushed under speedy girth in any terrain, being cooked to death by their flamethrowers, riddled with bullets by their turrets, being impaled by the Horus's drills, or even dying within a building that the Horus demolished are just one of the many thousand ways to die the Chariots can administer. But most painfully so, if you are not killed in one of these mostly quick and painless deaths, you would have to face being ripped apart piece by cellular piece by nanobots released in a nano haze, slowly disintegrating your entire body into a biomass, or being slowly digested by a giant tentacled beast. Sounds like some anti-war fetish bullshit, but we're not going to talk about that. Once the chariots have gone full mechanical flood, all means of life will slowly be extinguished, even plants and animals. So not only exhausting all of our own food supplies, but take a moment to think about that. No plants means no oxygen for us to breathe. So not only will we slowly starve as we are being murdered left and right, but eventually we will asphyxiate anywhere on the planet that wasn't creating artificial oxygen in a contained environment. The whole world's biosphere would slowly die out because no one can breathe. Everyone would either be maimed, turned into robot food, die of hunger, or suffocate a slow and painful demise as we watch the planet we evolved on from the very beginning slowly turn to the machines and just become a giant rock floating in space, adorned with a lot of mechanical life forms. As stated earlier, it was projected that the Chariot line would wipe out every living thing on Earth in the span of only 15 months, spreading like a disease since it's called a plague. And this is just what happened. The only way we could slow it down by a week or two was by sacrificing millions upon millions of innocent lives, on the hope that we could wipe out these machines with a superweapon that would never come to be. The final verdict for those in power was to create a system to bring back life on the planet long after we were gone, and just accept our collective doomed fate. The only feasible means of survival in this scenario is finding a fallout shelter that can somehow block any means of tracking by the chariots, have its own means of oxygen production, a steady supply of food and water, and not going stir crazy for being stuck indoors for a long period of time. Which, seeing as how Corona has been in the last few months, I highly doubt many people would manage to stay indoors for even a month, even if the planet outside had no air to breathe or food to eat. But, I mean, you could try riding out the years or even decades in a fallout shelter if you had all the necessary means to survive, as the chariots, devoid of their fuel sources, will go into hibernation after a while. But if you do attempt to go outside and rough it in the barren rock that once was Earth, it's going to be pointless with nothing left. And to make matters worse, any nearby chariots will detect that you are alive. They will break their hibernation, wake up, and hunt you down, and convert your body into more fuel. As these machines cannot die out, they have no expiration date until they are literally destroyed. Well, that about wraps up this look into the beginnings of Horizon Zero Dawn and how this chariot plague wiped out humanity, and how it would be even worse for us. If you guys want a part 2 of Horizon, where we go over the post-extinction events, and Gaia changing the world into a robot animal wonderland with primitive humanity, let me know in the comments, and if this video does well enough, I'll eventually get back to cover more. What other game universes should I cover in the future? Give me your suggestions as well. Support the channel by simply liking, subscribing, and ringing that bell, and if you are financially inclined, you can donate in a number of ways. From being a longtime donator, a patron on my Patreon to see my videos before anyone else, being a member on the channel by hitting join, or donating during my live streams. I have merch as well that you can find directly beneath the video on Teespring. And if you get a shirt or other merch, I'll post your pic here, reppin' that well, like this sexy as hell person, Unsainted Ghost. Thanks for watching. Check out some of my other Why You Wouldn't Survive videos, my zombie sins, or some zombie reviews. And like I always say, never forget to stay happy, stay lovely, and stay wow.